In the vast silence of space, humanity's first encounter with extraterrestrial life wasn't marked by awe or terror, it was shattered by uncontrollable laughter. As the alien warlord's booming voice demanded Earth's unconditional surrender, Captain Lisa Moore and her crew stared at the view screen, their eyes widening not in fear, but in disbelief at the clunky, fission-powered relic floating before them. "They think that's advanced," a crew member whispered, igniting a wave of giggles that echoed across the bridge. Little did they know, this absurd mismatch would unravel an empire's illusions and forge an unlikely alliance among the stars. The bridge of the UES horizon buzzed with tension as Captain Lisa Moore locked her gaze on the main view screen. Humanity had scoured the stars for alien life for years, their hopes pinned on a moment of cosmic connection. Now, at last, they'd found it, but the reality was far stranger than anyone aboard had dared to dream. "Captain, incoming transmission from the alien vessel," announced Communications Officer Diane Kelly, her fingers dancing across the glowing control panel with practiced precision. "Put it on screen," Lisa ordered, tugging her uniform jacket straight, her voice steady despite the electric anticipation in the air. The screen flickered, revealing a blue-skinned alien adorned with a gaudy metal helmet studded with blinking lights. Behind him, his crew scrambled in a cluttered control room that looked like it belonged in a retro sci-fi flick. "Humans of Earth," the alien intoned in shockingly fluent English, "I am Grand Admiral Zex of the mighty Zarnaxian Empire. We have come to accept your surrender. Bow before our superior technology and join our glorious empire as our servants." Silence gripped the horizon's bridge. Lisa glanced at her crew, their wide-eyed stares mirroring her own disbelief. Then, a stifled snort broke the quiet. Lieutenant Jack Bennett clapped a hand over his mouth, but it was no use, laughter erupted, his shoulders shaking as he doubled over his station. "Lieutenant!" Lisa snapped, though a smirk tugged at her lips, betraying her own amusement. "I'm sorry, Captain," Jack gasped between chuckles. "But did they just demand we surrender because they think they're more advanced? Have you seen their ship?" Lisa had indeed seen it, a clunky metal tube powered by what looked like nuclear fission engines, tech humanity had left in the dust a century ago. Chief Engineer Maria Rodriguez shook her head, her voice dripping with incredulity. "They're using actual nuclear fission, and they're proud of it. It's like someone waving a bow and arrow while you've got a fusion pistol tucked in your belt." On screen, Grand Admiral Zex's expression darkened, his helmet's lights blinking furiously. "Why do you not tremble in fear? We have mastered the atom. We can annihilate your cities with our nuclear arsenal." Security Chief Paul Garcia leaned toward Lisa, his voice low. "Should we tell them we phased out nuclear weapons 50 years ago because they were barbaric? Or that high school kids split atoms for fun in science class?" Diane chimed in, barely containing her grin. "Yeah, it's practically a lab experiment for teenagers." Lisa raised a hand, silencing the crew. This was still first contact, no matter how absurd. She squared her shoulders and addressed the screen with measured calm. "Admiral Zex, Earth welcomes the Zarnaxian Empire. We're surprised by your approach. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting to discuss relations between our peoples." Zex's eyes narrowed, confusion flickering across his face. "You wish to discuss terms of surrender in person?" "No," Lisa clarified, her tone diplomatic but firm. "We wish to meet and learn about each other. No one needs to surrender." The alien muttered to an off-screen aide, then nodded curtly. "Very well. We will send a delegation to discuss your peaceful submission." The transmission cut off, and the bridge exploded in laughter. Lisa shook her head, a wry smile breaking through. "Poor things. They genuinely believe they're the advanced civilization here." Jack wiped a tear from his eye. "Should we prepare a welcome that won't completely shatter their egos?" Lisa considered this, her gaze drifting to the starfield beyond. "Let's be gentle. Show them some basic tech, nothing that'll cause a cultural meltdown. And everyone, try not to laugh in their faces." Underscore 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 underscore. Ambassador Daniel White fidgeted with his tie for the 5th time, standing in the sleek confines of Earth's orbital friendship station. Years of training for first contact had prepared him for awe-inspiring encounters, not this. Aliens who thought they could conquer Earth with tech centuries behind humanity's. It was almost comical. "Try not to smile too much," whispered his assistant, Karen Hughes, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "The cultural team says these Sarnaxians value respect and fear." "I'll do my best," Daniel muttered, steadying himself as the door hissed open. 6 Sarnaxians strode in, led by a towering figure clad in ceremonial armor that sparkled with blinking lights and garish symbols. To human eyes, it looked like a costume cobbled together for a low-budget sci-fi convention. "Greetings, humans," boomed the leader, his voice tinny through a translator device. "I am Supreme Overlord Sagthrax of the mighty Sarnaxian Empire." Daniel bowed slightly, his diplomat's instincts kicking in. "Welcome to Earth's Friendship Station, Supreme Overlord. I'm Ambassador Daniel White, representing the United Earth Government." Sagthrax surveyed the minimalist meeting room, his eyes narrowing. The space was a marvel of human ingenuity, gravity control, smart glass walls that doubled as screens, furniture that adjusted to the user's body. Yet to the Sarnaxians, it seemed underwhelming. "You did not prepare a more impressive chamber to receive us?" Sagthrax asked, his tone dripping with disdain. Karen coughed, barely stifling a laugh. Daniel shot her a warning glance before responding smoothly. "We value comfort over ostentation, Supreme Overlord." Sagthrax waved a dismissive hand. "No matter. We are here to discuss your planet's entry into our glorious empire. We rule 3 whole star systems." Karen tapped her tablet and tilted it toward Daniel. The screen read, "Should we tell them we've got settlements in 17 systems?" Daniel gave a subtle headshake, keeping his focus on Sagthrax. "That's impressive," he said, his voice warm but neutral. "Perhaps you could share more about your empire while we enjoy some refreshments." The Sarnaxians exchanged baffled glances, clearly thrown by the humans' calm. Daniel suppressed a smile. First contact was supposed to be a historic milestone, but instead, humanity faced a diplomatic tightrope: how to engage with a civilization so convinced of its superiority, yet so blissfully unaware of its own limitations. It was going to be one hell of a challenge, and maybe, just maybe, a little fun. The Sarnaxians stood tall, their sleek metallic uniforms glinting under the conference room's soft lights, exuding confidence in their supposed supremacy. They'd clearly anticipated trembling knees or, at the very least, awestruck deference from the humans. "You don't seem concerned about our military might," remarked Science Minister Creel, the smallest of the alien delegation, his voice tinged with curiosity and a hint of indignation. Daniel, Earth's lead diplomat, leaned back in his chair, his tone calm but deliberate. "We prefer to understand our potential allies before diving into politics." His words were measured, a diplomatic dance to keep the conversation light. When the refreshments arrived, simple trays of fruit, pastries, and clear drinks, the Sarnaxians froze, eyeing the spread with suspicion. One of them, a stern figure with a jagged crest, whipped out a handheld device and scanned the offerings. "It's safe to consume," he announced, his surprise almost comical. Karen, Daniel's sharp-witted deputy, couldn't hold back a chuckle. "Did you think we'd poison our guests?" Her voice carried a mix of amusement and disbelief. Creel's scaled cheeks flushed a faint purple. "In our experience, weaker species often resort to deceit when faced with superior power." Daniel's smile was warm, disarming. "Rest assured, that's not how humans conduct diplomacy." As the meeting unfolded, the Sarnaxians began to open up, their boasts painting a picture of their world. They spoke of weapons that sounded like relics to human ears, crude projectile launchers, and touted their nuclear power systems as if they were the pinnacle of innovation. Daniel listened patiently, then offered, "Perhaps tomorrow we could show you some of our facilities. A cultural exchange might help us understand each other better." Zag Frax, the Zarnaxian leader, hesitated, his voice wavering. "Yes, we'd like to see how primitive your technology is compared to ours." After the aliens departed, Karen collapsed into her chair, laughter bubbling up. "They have no idea, do they?" Daniel's expression turned pensive, his gaze drifting to the window where Earth glowed serene and blue against the cosmic void. "No, they don't. And I'm worried about what happens when they do. We need to tread carefully, shattering their pride could unravel more than just this meeting." Karen tilted her head, intrigued. "What do you think will happen when they see even our basic tech?" "I don't know," Daniel admitted, his voice low. "But our real challenge won't be avoiding conflict. It'll be helping them face the truth without losing their sense of self." Outside, the Zarnaxian ship orbited silently, its nuclear engines pulsing with a glow its crew believed unmatched. Underscore 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 underscore. The next day, Chief Engineer Maria Rodriguez led the Zarnaxian delegation through a standard human manufacturing facility, her smile polite but practiced. The aliens had insisted on inspecting Earth's technology, clearly expecting crude machinery that would cement their sense of superiority. "This is one of our basic production centers," Maria said, gesturing to the pristine factory floor where sleek robots glided with effortless precision. "Nothing fancy, just where we make everyday goods." Science Minister Creel's eyes widened with every step, his clawed fingers twitching as if resisting the urge to touch the machines. The other Zarnaxians fiddled with their translation devices, murmuring to each other, their confidence visibly fraying. "These machines, they operate without direct control?" Creel asked, his voice faltering. "Of course," Maria replied casually. "Worker robots have been standard for about 40 years. One Zarnaxian whispered urgently to Creel, who shifted uncomfortably. "Is something wrong?" Maria asked, her tone innocent but her eyes sharp. No, Creel stammered. "Please, continue." They approached a massive glass chamber where blue light pulsed rhythmically, conjuring intricate objects layer by layer from thin air. "This is a molecular assembler," Maria explained. "It builds things atom by atom. Most homes have smaller versions for things like dishes or tools." Creel pressed his face against the glass, his breath fogging the surface. "You manipulate individual atoms?" Maria shrugged. "Since I was in school. It's pretty standard." Commander Vex, the Zarnaxian military officer, broke his silence, his voice tight. "If this is your standard technology, what are your weapons like?" Maria's smile didn't waver. "We don't really make weapons anymore. Earth unified decades ago, and we found better uses for our tech." The aliens exchanged nervous glances, their earlier bravado crumbling. Maria gestured toward a wide-open space. "Let's head to our transportation hub next." As they entered, a silver platform in the center glowed briefly, humming with quiet power. In that moment, the Zarnaxians stood on the edge of a revelation, their worldview teetering. Earth's quiet strength wasn't just a challenge to their pride, it was a mirror, reflecting a truth they weren't ready to face. But as the platform's glow faded, one thing was clear, the real test of diplomacy was just beginning. A woman materialized on the platform, stepping off with a casual nod as she breezed past the group. Creel's eyes widened, his voice a mix of awe and disbelief. Did that human just appear from nothing? Maria, their guide, flashed a warm smile. "Just a short-range matter transporter. Handy for zipping around the facility." For longer trips, we use gravity skips. Commander Vex's hand tightened around the bulky device at his hip, a weapon, Maria noted, reminiscent of an old Earth projectile gun. His voice climbed an octave, betraying his shock. Your species can transport matter. Only reliably over short distances, Maria said with a shrug. For planetary travel, we've got gravity manipulation tech. Want to see it in action? Without waiting for a reply, she ushered them to a wide window overlooking a launch bay. Outside, a sleek silver shuttle lifted silently, hovered for a heartbeat, then rocketed skyward, vanishing in a blink. That shuttle will hit our moon base in about 3 minutes, Maria said, her tone as casual as if she'd commented on the weather. Vex's weapon slipped from his grasp, clattering loudly on the polished floor. His blue face flushed a vivid purple as he scrambled to pick it up. Creel, choosing his words carefully, murmured, I think we may have misjudged human development. Maria, ever diplomatic, ignored Vex's embarrassment. Tech evolves differently across worlds. We're curious about your civilization's path, too. Creel straightened, his voice quieter now, lacking its earlier bravado. Our great empire mastered nuclear fission and chemical propulsion for space travel. That's impressive, Maria said kindly. Every species carves its own way. As the tour continued, the Zarnaxians grew subdued. In the medical center, humans casually discussed life extension therapies, tossing around terms like cellular regeneration and 150-year lifespans. Vex finally voiced the question burning in their minds. Why didn't you destroy our ship when we threatened you? Maria blinked, surprised. Why would we? You crossed the stars to meet us. That makes you explorers, like us. And explorers should be friends, not foes. The Zarnaxians exchanged baffled glances, their understanding of galactic power dynamics unraveling. 3 hours later, Commander Stephanie Lewis stared at the blank communication screen in the orbital station's monitoring room. The Zarnaxian delegation had abruptly ended their tour and retreated to their ship. Still nothing? Admiral Joe Wilson asked, striding in. Nothing, sir, Stephanie replied. They went silent after the medical center. Greg Miller, the team psychologist, adjusted his glasses. That was the breaking point. When Dr. Johnson mentioned our average lifespan, 150 years, I saw their commander's face change color. Are they preparing to attack? Wilson's brow furrowed, eyeing a display of the Zarnaxian ship's thermal readings. Greg shook his head. I doubt it. Their society is built on believing they're superior. Learning their centuries behind us. It's likely triggered an identity crisis. The screen flickered to life, revealing a new Zarnaxian face, thinner, with lighter blue skin than the military leaders. This is Diplomat Vin of the Zarnaxian Empire, he said, his voice lacking the swagger of his predecessors. I request to speak with your leaders. Stephanie stepped forward. Commander Stephanie Lewis here, with Admiral Wilson. How can we assist, Diplomat Vin? Vin hesitated. The Supreme Overlord is indisposed. I'm handling communications now. Our ship has technical issues, and our supplies are low. We can't return to Zarnax without refueling. We'd be happy to help, Stephanie said warmly. Vin's expression flickered with surprise. You'd aid us, even after our threats? Of course, Wilson interjected. That's what neighbors do. Vin blinked, clearly thrown. You had the power to destroy us. Why didn't you? Stephanie's voice softened. True progress isn't about destruction. It's about having the power to destroy but choosing to help instead. Vin's large eyes flickered rapidly. This isn't how galactic politics works in our experience. Maybe it's time for a new approach, Greg said with a friendly grin. After arranging fuel and supplies for the Zarnaxian ship, Stephanie huddled with her team. Chief Engineer Bill Porter frowned. Their ship's a mess. Poorly shielded nuclear reactor, radiation levels we wouldn't have tolerated a century ago. Can we fix it? Stephanie asked. Easily, Bill nodded. But their culture revolves around technological superiority. Helping them might disrupt that. Greg leaned in. They've seen enough to know the truth. The question is whether we help them face reality or let them flounder. We help, Stephanie decided. Gently. No flaunting, just practical support and friendship. The next day, diplomat Vin returned, his arrogance replaced by cautious curiosity. Our council has questions about your rapid development, your society, your history. Stephanie smiled. We have questions, too. Maybe we can learn from each other. Vin looked stunned. Learn from us? What could humans learn from Zarnax? Every species has unique perspectives, Stephanie said. Technology isn't everything. We're curious about your art, philosophy, your view of the cosmos. For the first time, a genuine smile crossed Vin's face. Dr. Frank Nelson, an anthropologist specializing in human cultures, never imagined he'd become an ambassador to aliens. Yet here he was, tasked with helping the Zarnaxians understand Earth, and, in turn, helping humanity glimpse the universe through their eyes. A new chapter of connection had begun, one where friendship, not power, would shape the future. A journey through Earth's diversity. Are all these different styles of buildings really necessary? Neil, the Zarnaxian cultural analyst, asked with a puzzled tilt of his head as he strolled through New York City's bustling streets. His large, luminous eyes scanned the eclectic skyline, where sleek skyscrapers towered over weathered brownstones. Not necessary, perhaps, but deeply meaningful, replied Frank, his human guide, with a warm smile. Humans cherish our history. These older buildings are like threads tying us to our past. Neil tapped notes into a sleek device, his curiosity piqued. Once, the Zarnaxian Empire had descended on Earth as would-be conquerors, only to discover humanity's unexpected technological prowess. Now, they were humble visitors, eager to understand. On Zarnax, every building follows a single design, Neil said, his voice tinged with pride. When we find better materials, we raise the old and rebuild. Frank nodded thoughtfully. That's one way to do it. Humans, though, hold on to structures with cultural or historical weight, even if they're not the most practical. Their walk led them to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where Neil froze before a display of ancient stone axes. Primitive tools, he observed, his tone a mix of intrigue and disdain. Why showcase relics of an undeveloped era? Frank's eyes twinkled. We're proud of our journey. Every step, from crude tools to starships, tells the story of who we are. The concept seemed to baffle Neil, who muttered, we're taught to hide our early technological stumbles, not celebrate them. As they wandered through the museum, Neil's confusion deepened in the modern art wing. He stopped before a vibrant, abstract painting, its colors swirling chaotically. This doesn't look real, he said, frowning. Was this artist unskilled? Not at all, Frank chuckled. She wasn't aiming for realism. This art captures emotions, ideas, expressed through color and form. Neil's head tilted. Art without function. That's strange. Later, Frank ushered Neil into a dimly lit movie theater, where a sci-fi blockbuster unfolded on the screen. Humans battled advanced alien invaders, their grit outshining their tech. Neil shifted uneasily. This shows humans losing to superior aliens, he whispered. Yet you outmatched us when we came to Earth. Why imagine yourselves weaker? Frank leaned in, his voice low. We love underdog stories. They remind us that creativity and determination can topple any giant. As the credits rolled, Neil fell silent, his thoughts churning. Outside, Frank noticed his companion's quiet demeanor. Something on your mind? He asked gently. Neil hesitated. Our media always portrays Zarnaxians as supreme. Your stories, though, show humans struggling, failing, learning. It's humbling. Frank smiled. Challenges make the best stories. They keep us grounded, remind us that tech alone doesn't define us. Neil's gaze swept over the city, where people of countless backgrounds mingled in harmony. Your world has thousands of cultures, beliefs, ways of life, he said, awestruck. Yet you thrive as one. On Zarnax, we enforce sameness. Diversity strengthens us, Frank replied. Different perspectives spark creative solutions. Their final stop was a playground, alive with children's laughter. Kids built towers, spun tales, or raced across climbing frames, each in their own way. Look at them, Frank said, gesturing. Every child plays differently, yet they share this space. Neil watched, fascinated. We teach Sarnaxian children one approved way to play. As they headed back to the transportation hub, Neil paused, his voice tentative. Dr. Nelson, could the Zarnaxian Empire learn to embrace diversity in history like humans do? Frank's smile was warm, encouraging. Any species can grow when it opens itself to new ideas. That's the beauty of cultural exchange. For the first time since arriving on Earth, a spark of hope lit Neil's eyes. Meanwhile, aboard an orbital station, historian Nancy Mitchell sat alone in a softly lit library, surrounded by flickering digital screens. For 2 weeks, she'd pored over Zarnaxian historical records, her brow furrowed. Something didn't add up. You're still working? Sam Ortiz, her colleague, asked, sliding a steaming cup of coffee across the table. It's past midnight. Nancy pointed to her screen, where timelines of Zarnaxian technological leaps glowed. Look at this. They went from basic flight to nuclear power in a decade, then from simple computers to faster-than-light travel in just 20 years. That's not natural. Sam raised an eyebrow, grinning. Maybe they're just smarter than us. Nancy shook her head, her voice firm. No civilization jumps like that. There should be gradual steps, failed experiments. They skipped entire stages. The next morning, Nancy requested a meeting with Diploman, the Zarnaxian liaison. As he entered the room, his demeanor was polite but guarded. You wish to discuss our history? He asked, his voice smooth yet curious. Nancy leaned forward, her eyes sharp. Your records show impossible leaps in technology. I want to know how. The room grew still, the weight of her question hanging in the air. The story of Earth and Zarnax was far from over, and the truth, it seemed, was only beginning to unfold. A galactic awakening. The aliens, once stiff and guarded, had softened after weeks of mingling with humans. Their cautious edges dulled, replaced by a tentative curiosity. Nancy leaned forward, her eyes bright with discovery, as she slid a meticulously crafted timeline across the table toward Vin, the Zarnaxian diplomat. I've been digging into your technological history, she said, her voice alive with intrigue. But one thing puzzles me. Who were the precursors? Vin's blue skin visibly paled, the faint shimmer of his scales dimming. Where did you hear that name? He asked, his tone sharp, almost offensive. I found mentions buried in your historical texts, Nancy replied, her voice steady but probing. They appear out of nowhere about 2,000 years ago, then vanish from your records. What's their story? Vin shifted uncomfortably, his glowing eyes darting away. The precursors, they're not a topic we share with outsiders. Nancy softened her approach, sensing his unease. I think I've pieced it together, she said gently. They gave you technology, didn't they? Advanced blueprints, devices your people didn't create yourselves. A heavy silence hung between them. Then Vin sighed, a strikingly human gesture he'd picked up during his time on Earth. You're right, he admitted, his voice low. 2 millennia ago, the precursors visited our world. They gifted us faster-than-light engines, nuclear power systems, advanced weaponry. Then they left, without a trace. And without explaining how any of it worked, Nancy guessed, her mind racing. Vin nodded, his expression grim. We could use their gifts, even replicate them, but we never understood the science. Our scholars have spent centuries trying to unravel precursor technology. That explains so much, Nancy said, leaning back, her thoughts clicking into place. Your civilization has incredible tech in some areas but lags in others. You're wielding tools you didn't forge yourselves. Vin's voice dropped to a near whisper. Our entire imperial ideology hinges on the belief that the precursors chose us because we were superior, destined to rule the galaxy. Nancy chose her words carefully, her tone measured but firm. Being handed technology isn't the same as mastering it. Humans crawled forward slowly, solving each puzzle ourselves. That struggle gave us a deeper understanding. Vin's eyes widened, a flicker of respect crossing his face. You developed faster than light travel independently. We still don't grasp how our engines function. We just follow the precursor blueprints. That's why your ships rely on outdated nuclear fission for power, Nancy realized, her voice tinged with excitement. You got the plans for FTL drives but not the advanced energy systems to refine them. Vin stared at his hands, his scales glinting faintly. Our leaders hid this truth, fearing our empire would crumble if the people knew we didn't earn our advancements. And now? Nancy asked, her voice soft but pointed. Now we face a choice, Vin said, meeting her gaze. Keep pretending, or learn to truly understand our tools. He hesitated, then added, do you think humans would teach us? Nancy's face broke into a warm smile. That's what neighbors do, help each other grow. For the first time, Vin's lips curved into a genuine smile, not the forced politeness of their early encounters. Perhaps the precursors didn't choose us for our superiority, he said quietly. Maybe they saw we needed help. Nancy nodded, her voice steady with conviction. Sometimes the greatest gift isn't the tool itself, but the chance to learn how to make it better. Underscore 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 underscore. Captain Lisa Moore stood at the vast viewing window of Earth's orbital station, her gaze fixed on the Zarnaxian ship below. Engineers swarmed around it, their tools flashing as they put the final touches on a vessel that had transformed over 3 months. Once a clunky, radiation-leaking relic, it now gleamed with sleek protective coatings and a cutting-edge fusion reactor. Hard to believe that's the same ship that came to conquer us, Lieutenant Jack Bennett said, stepping beside her, his voice laced with awe. They've come even further than their ship, Lisa replied, her eyes tracing the smooth lines of the vessel. The Zarnaxian crew had shed their gaudy, ceremonial uniforms and their air of superiority. Now, they worked shoulder to shoulder with human engineers, their curiosity genuine, their skills sharpening. Captain Moore, a familiar voice called. Lisa turned to see Vin approaching, accompanied by Science Minister Creel. Gone were Vin's ostentatious diplomatic robes, replaced by simple attire that spoke of humility. We wanted to thank you before we depart, Vin said, his tone warm. You've given us more than we could have imagined. No thanks needed, Lisa said, her smile genuine. That's what friends do. Friends, Creel echoed, as if tasting the word for the first time. 3 months ago, we came to make you our servants. Now we leave as your students, and, in some ways, your teachers. Lisa nodded, her voice kind. We've learned so much about Zarnaxian culture. It's deepened our understanding of the galaxy. Ambassador Daniel White approached, holding a small box. A final gift from Earth, he said, handing it to Vin. The diplomat opened it carefully, revealing a simple data crystal. This contains foundational education programs, Daniel explained. Mathematics, physics, chemistry, engineering, not advanced tech, but the building blocks to truly understand how it all works. The foundations we've been missing, Vin said softly, cradling the crystal like a treasure. "This is worth more than any weapon or engine. What's next for you?" Lisa asked, her curiosity piqued. Creel and Vin exchanged a glance. "The truth is spreading through our empire," Creel admitted. "That we didn't create our technology, that we've been following precursor blueprints blindly." "Some are angry, some in denial," Vin added. "But many are eager to learn real science for the first time." Lisa's heart swelled with hope. "You're at the start of something extraordinary." Vin's eyes gleamed with determination. "We'll rebuild our future, not on borrowed gifts, but on knowledge we earn ourselves." As the Zarnaxian ship powered up, its engines humming with newfound efficiency, Lisa watched it rise into the stars. The galaxy felt smaller, not because of faster ships, but because two worlds had chosen to grow together. In that moment, she knew, the greatest victories weren't won through conquest, but through the courage to learn. "The Council's vote yesterday reshaped our future," Creel declared, his voice brimming with pride. "We are no longer an empire. We are the Zaraxian Cooperative, a union dedicated to sharing knowledge, not seizing worlds." Jack's face split into a wide grin. "So, no more Supreme Overlord," he teased. Brain, standing nearby, let a rare smile tug at his lips. "Sagthrax has embraced a new title, First Scholar. It fits him better than he'd care to admit." A crisp voice crackled over the station speakers, announcing the Zaraxian ship's readiness for departure. The moment had come to part ways. Lisa stepped forward, her eyes bright. "We've prepared something special for your journey home," she said, her tone warm with meaning. "It's a human tradition for farewells among friends." She led the group to the launch bay, where the sleek, upgraded Zaraxian vessel gleamed under the station's lights. Painted boldly across its hull, in both human and Zaraxian scripts, was its new name, Friendship Bridge. Daniel gestured toward the ship, his voice steady but heartfelt. "This vessel is the first to carry a mixed crew, humans and Zaraxians together. A bridge between our worlds." Vim, the Zaraxian envoy, stood in quiet awe, his eyes tracing the ship's name. "When we first arrived," he said softly, "you could have crushed us or mocked our arrogance. Instead, you offered kindness and taught us humility through your actions." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "You've shown us that laughter can be a greater weapon against pride than any worship." Lisa nodded, her smile sharp and knowing. "Laughter breaks down walls better than bombs ever could." As the Friendship Bridge prepared to launch, 3 human scientists, volunteers eager to serve as teachers and ambassadors, joined the Zaraxian crew, ready to visit their homeworld. From the observation deck, Lisa watched the ship glide gracefully away, its new engines pulsing with clean, vibrant energy. Jack leaned in, his voice quiet. "Do you think they'll be okay out there?" Lisa's gaze lingered on the ship as it shimmered against the void. "They've found something greater than an empire," she said. "They found a new path forward." With a sudden flare, the ship's faster-than-light drive engaged, not as a mysterious relic, but as a technology its crew now understood. In a brilliant flash, the Friendship Bridge vanished, carrying a message of unity to the stars. In just 3 months, would-be conquerors had transformed into explorers and learners. And the humans? They'd been reminded of a timeless truth: true progress isn't born from technology alone, but from the choices we make in wielding it. Conclusion. As the Friendship Bridge vanished into the cosmos, carrying a blended crew of humans and Zarnaxians toward a shared future, Captain Lisa Moore reflected on the journey from ridicule to respect. What began as a comedic clash of civilizations had evolved into a profound lesson: true superiority lies not in borrowed gadgets or boasted might, but in the humility to learn and the wisdom to uplift. In the end, the galaxy wasn't conquered by force, but connected through laughter, curiosity, and the unbreakable bonds of mutual growth, proving that even the mightiest empires can find strength in friendship.